Everyone wants schools that are safe, where students, teachers, and support staff can concentrate on learning and not have to worry about crime and violence. In this community dialogue, you'll be asked to discuss your ideas on the best way to ensure that schools are safe places for children to learn and grow.
There are people that feel like the problem doesn't affect them because of where they live, or I don't have children. And so we, in fact, need to bring everybody together so that everybody can take responsibility for their community.
I think first of all you have to stop pointing fingers at people. I think too many people are blamed for, too many different groups are blamed for the problems. We want to blame the parents want to blame the schools, we want to blame the community wants to blame the schools, and so on. I think what we need to do is we need to take an issue with this and make sure that everybody understands what the problem is, and that they have to look at the problem and say, we have this problem. It's not just us, it's not just you. We have this problem and we need to work together collaboratively in order to figure out a solution.
Once my children leave the school, I want to know they're in a safe environment. And school should be a safe environment for any child.
Many people are concerned with how safe their local schools are, and with recent reports in the news, that concern has skyrocketed. Is the problem as serious as it's appeared in the news lately, or are the media reporting the most sensational incidents, blowing the issue out of proportion, and perhaps distracting schools and communities from the central issue of teaching kids well? In other words, is the issue of school safety a crisis of the highest order, or one of many problems the schools and communities should be attending to? In the first part of our discussion, we'd like you to address this question. How serious is the issue of school safety in your local schools? And do you consider it a crisis or a problem?
School safety is definitely at a crisis level. We are in a state of emergency. And any time that I talk with schools or students or community associations, the police department, we are most certainly in a state of emergency.
I think up to the middle school level where my kids are, I think the school is doing a great job. The high school is a different story. I mean, the kids aren't there yet. I've heard kids take knives to school.
But overall, it's a crisis.
In society?
Yeah, overall, it's a problem. It's like a domino effect.
School safety is not a crisis nationally. I think it's a problem and sometimes a crisis in specific schools and in specific communities.
So I don't think it's happening more. It's just talked about more and it's portrayed more in the media because media is showing you everything.
I don't think it's a crisis. I think it's something to be concerned about. I think that there are, a lot of kids that don't feel safe in school.
Different approaches to school safety will have different benefits, different costs, and different challenges. To help you and your neighbors decide what's most important to you, we've created 3 hypothetical school communities, each of which has approached the issue of school safety in a different way. Which would you want for your own community and schools, and why? Community 1, teach students to resolve conflicts peacefully and provide social services to those in need. Television and movies too often teach kids that violence is the answer to conflict with others, and children need to be taught that it's possible to resolve conflict without resorting to violence. And for those children who are troubled and need extra help, the schools should be providing first-rate guidance and psychological services to detect and counsel such children and their families. Parents can help by limiting the amount of violent television and movies children see. The community can help by seeing to it that social services for troubled families are adequate. Those who like this approach often say, kids don't learn to resolve their conflicts by magic. You have to teach them how to do it. And an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
We have to expose kids to peer mediation, conflict resolution, and the proper way to respond to conflict very, very early.
I act as a mediator because many times children do not know how to resolve their own problems, so that we have to start in the earlier years. And part of being a mediator is that you repeat what the other child wants, and then you go to the other child and ask, how can we resolve this? and we go back and forth until we come to an agreement.
If you got parents raising kids and they're not teaching them to respect themselves and respect others, that's when you start running into these problems.
Everybody should get together and try to get a program that could focus on some of these troubled kids from troubled families, because they need the help. And if they don't get that attention, they're going to get into the school and let it out in a violent way and draw attention to get help.
Community 2. Set behavioral standards with clear consequences and make students and their parents accountable. The most important way to change violent behavior is to impose clear consequences for those actions. Schools should employ a zero-tolerance policy that removes violent kids or removes those caught with weapons or drugs. In addition, parents should be made accountable for the behavior of their children. For example, parents of disruptive kids could be required to attend classes to learn techniques that can help keep their children under control. Parents and the community can help by supporting the school's zero-tolerance policy and helping the schools to make sure that all children and their families understand that policy clearly. Those who like this approach often say, if the rules and the guidelines are clear and if they're enforced, kids will learn to live by them, and there can be no second chances when violence and weapons are involved.
If there aren't consequences for the behavior, two things can happen. One, that child will try it again because they didn't do anything to me anyway. They just talked to me. They talked nice to me to be good next time. Also, it sets a bad example to other children. And they said, well, he did it, and nothing really happened to him, so they'll try it.
We have to be willing as parents to put pressure on each other to not go in and bail out a child when they get in trouble and not try to get exceptions made to the rules when our children do something that crosses the line.
I think it should be like mandatory, that parents should have to attend some kind of classes on discipline, on how to talk to their kids, on how to build their kids' self-esteem.
It's critical to have a safe learning environment. I mean, it's almost difficult not to do it and not to do anything else as a goal and meet those goals without a safe learning environment. So to the extent the school system has to use mechanisms to suspend or expel students who are involved in various criminal activity, guns, drugs, etc., I think every community of every color and persuasion in this country is going to accept that. The question for me is, what do you do with those students once you've expelled them? How do you provide learning opportunities for those students in a different setting?
Community 3. Enhance school security and reinforce this in the community. Things like zero-tolerance policies and conflict resolution training distract educators from their central mission, teaching. Your police or private security forces are equipped and trained to handle violent and disruptive students. Metal detectors and a security presence will best deter and control school violence and permit educators to focus on their jobs. Parents and the community can help by supporting the school's policy and making sure there are necessary funds to install metal detectors and maintain an adequate security presence. Those who like this approach often say violent and disruptive students should be handled by security professionals. And a secure environment is one in which kids can focus on learning and school staff can focus on teaching.
Schools need metal detectors and all that because of every day you read the newspaper, some child has been killed because of a gun or a knife, and they just walking right in with them. So you need some kind of deterrent.
Well, I think to make an appropriate environment for education, I do think that entrances and exits do have to be monitored. I think you have to feel safe in your school. I think you have to feel safe in your classroom. And if that's what it takes for the students to feel safe and for the teachers to feel safe, I think that that needs to be done.
People go through metal detectors to get in an airplane. People go on metal detectors to go into banks these days. People go through metal detectors for a whole bunch of things. I don't think that it's necessarily a terrible thing for schools.
We're at a point where we probably have to almost react as if we're, keeping the kids in and almost imprisoning them. That's the atmosphere that's projected with the metal detectors and all that. But maybe it's necessary for a while.
Community 1 is teaching students to resolve conflicts peacefully and providing social services to those in need. They say kids should learn to resolve their conflicts and manage their problems. Community 2 is setting behavioral standards with clear consequences and making students and their parents accountable. They say if the rules are clear and they're enforced, kids will learn to live by them. Community 3 is enhancing school security. They say violent and disruptive students should be handled by security professionals.